Hey folks, I'm Jax, and today we're going to be touching on the changes coming to Shadow Priest in 9.15. Now, overall, I'm really excited where Shadow is. I know at about the midpoint of 9.1, Shadow did receive a bit of a nerf to Devouring Plague. Really kind of a bit of a turnoff from the community to lose 8% throughput. But what we're actually seeing is that it's one of the few classes where Blizz is actually still working on tuning to see like what do we want to buff and what do we want to nerf. For a lot of classes with 9.15, it's almost been exclusively Covenant adjustments, but we're still continuing to see some refining of mechanics here. So overall, the changes tied to 9.15 for Shadow Priest. Surrender to Madness, its duration has been increased to 30 seconds. It was 25, so that's great news. But the problem is that when you increase Surrender to Madness, it doesn't materially do anything for us. It's not really where the value of that talent lies. It's too big a risk, too little reward to really commit this way entirely. So this is a bit of a weird toss-up. It's probably the one talent that we wouldn't use. We're going to continue to swap between Ancient Madness and Hungering Void. Maybe this is Blizz trying to make this a little bit more competitive, but we're going to have to see a bit more in terms of either uptime or throughput in order to make that credible. The other change that we're seeing, it's actually just tied to Psychic Link, the tier 5 ability. Psychic Link deals 60% of Mind Blast damage. It used to only be 50. So Psychic Link was never really bad per se. It was really just more designed in a way that without any real material single target value associated to it. It looks good if you're actually able to get like big packs. Like if you're in a group that's pushing like 4 to 5 opponents, then yeah, you're going to take advantage of that massive cleave. But really it has no single target value, so it's not going to get a ton of play there. Certainly not up against Shadow class, which allows you to train either on targets or on like targets as in a big pack or on a single boss. Now into the talents. This is what everyone comes for. Tier 1, Death and Madness right off the bat. It's great in Mythic Plus when a mob in a particular pull dies at different times. It just allows us to continue to load up on Insanity in between packs. So that's our recommended go-to there. Body and Soul is just the best talent in the row. Gives us some increased mobility. Absolutely a great way to go. Anything that moves our slow little rears can only help us. Tier 3, where it starts to get a little interesting. Searing Nightmare is the best for AoE if you're going with 3 or more targets, so it's what I personally recommend. Alternatively, you do see some builds with Misery out there. It's not what I would recommend if you're just looking to max your damage. Hopefully your tanks pull in big pulls, and this is an easy integration point. Tier 4, you've got two choices here. You can go with Psychic Horror, and that gives you a stun, which, like, hey, you'll hear me abuse this, but I always prefer having a stun on hand. Alternatively, Last Word reduces the cooldown of your silence by 15 seconds, and we do know that that's probably one of the major weaknesses of the spec, just silence having such a long cooldown. It's really among the highest in the game for an interrupt. 45 seconds is a long time to be sitting there watching the rest of your group, crossing your fingers that they're going to stun like you need them to. So in Mythic Plus, you probably want to avoid that as much as you can. So you've got a choice here: Last Word or Psychic Core. Similarly, in Tier 5, we've got another choice that comes up between Shadow Crash and Auspicious Spirits. So Auspicious Spirits is the best single target and low target cleave pick that you can go with. Shadow Crash is actually the best for like AoE and any kind of like stacked cleave damage. It's not terribly behind Auspicious Spirits for single target either, so it's definitely worth pursuing. It's probably how I would recommend rolling. Now tier 6 is actually really straightforward. Mindbender in addition with Shadowflame Prism really gives you the strongest pick of the single target and cleave. So you can see I've already tipped my hand. Shadowflame Prism is where we want to go for Mythic Plus. And then tier 7, we had mentioned Surrender to Madness did receive a buff here, but it's not enough to make us consider otherwise. You can go with Ancient Madness, which is easy because, hey, you're literally just playing passive and waiting to take on your Void form. And that's useful when you're going to see like big AoE, or if you want to remove Void Bolt from your rotation while you're in Void form. It synergizes really well with Searing Nightmare, and allows you to burst down some massive packs really quick. So there you go, you're starting to see our build come together. Alternatively, Hungering Void is kind of a really solid choice if you're going to play a little bit of single target, or you're planning on going with more of a cleave type build. It really allows you to extend your Void form depending on your haste and crit. It also makes your Void Bolt increase your damage done to target for 6 seconds. So overall, this is really impactful and helpful for us. So certainly worth checking out. That's the quick and dirty as far as talents go. Now, jumping back to Legendaries, if you're going to go with the Night Fae Covenant, then the Shadowflame Prism, like I mentioned before, is a great way to go. Really strong on single target or stacked AoE. If you are thinking about some other builds, Necrolord, if you decided to go to that Covenant, has the Pallid Command for single target and Shadowflame Prism for Mythic Plus. Shadowflame Prism makes a huge difference. Like I just recommend it's the absolute go-to. Pallid Command helps push some damage, but it's only really effective in raiding. But that's largely it, folks. Outside of that, like when we step back and look to see like what's the overall most popular specs right now, or the most popular covenants, we should say, we're seeing right across the bat like pretty fair distribution. Most classes and even specs don't have this kind of a fair distribution right across the board. You can see Necrolords leading the charge with 36%, Night Fae with 25, Venthyr with 25, Kyrian with 12. That's why we're not seeing a bunch of Covenant tuning right now with Shadow Priest. It's really fairly distributed, so there seems like game developers are much more focused on refining the actual class or spec abilities in this case. Yeah, overall, I don't know. I expect Shadow is going to continue to be a dotting king and put up some massive DPS here. But drop it down in the comments. Let me know your thoughts on the state of Shadow and how you think it's going to be in Mythic Plus in 9.15. Alright folks, thanks for checking out the video. I'll see you all soon. Later.